Warning: the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, author of Liberalism is a Mental Disorder, Trump's War, and God, Faith, and Reason, Michael Savage.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
That was one of the most noble speeches ever given by a sports figure in the history of the world. That was Lou Gehrig, of Lou Gehrig's disease fame. He was a great American baseball player who was dying of Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. And he went before his beloved audience at the Yankee Stadium, and he gave that speech, which is still to this day considered one of the most noble speeches ever given by anyone at any time. And the reason I'm playing that speech is because Stephen Hawking died of ALS. And we now learn today that he said there is no God in his final book. I took umbrage at that for a number of reasons, and I asked today on Twitter a few questions about Stephen Hawking. As tragic as his life was because of ALS, did it suddenly elevate him to a position greater than that of Albert Einstein? How do scientists like Stephen Hawking become demigods of thought, suddenly in all fields, including theology? It's the same question as Dr. Ford being bigger now than Dr. Freud. How did that fraud, Dr. Ford, notice they called her Dr. Ford, they don't call him Dr. Hawkins, did you notice that? Just watch how the media applies labels to people. She was Dr. Ford, everyone in that kind of sanctimony, oh, Dr. Ford, doctor. How did she become bigger than Dr. Freud? And how did Hawking become bigger than Einstein? Well, today on the Savage Nation, amongst other topics, I'm going to talk about everything you wanted to know about Lou Gehrig's disease and more. And the reason I'm going to do that is because, as I said, Stephen Hawking died a while ago, and now we're being told today that he declared in his final book, God is not dead, he or she never existed in the first place. CNN reported. He said, no one directs the universe. Now, it disturbed me for a number of reasons. Why should his thoughts on God, meaning his atheistic thoughts on the non-existence of God, suddenly supersede that of all of humanity from the beginning of theological history? Well, it shouldn't. But you'll notice how the media is playing this great role. And I asked the question today, why is Stephen Hawking considered such a world genius? Well, because he pushed global warming, and now we learn he said there is no God. He's an atheist guru. And I want to discuss his disease, ALS, today for two reasons. One, because of what he said, there is no God, and we can then segue into what is ALS and other neurological diseases, including Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. Now, if you're young, you're probably not interested in this because you figure you're immune and you're immortal and you're never going to be affected by disease. That's okay. Everyone thinks they're immortal, just as they think that they're communists when they're 20. But the thing is, you'll get a little older and you'll find out that, A, you're not a communist. You're probably a devout capitalist once you have to pay taxes. And you'll also find out you're not immortal, and you'll start worrying about diseases, heart disease, Alzheimer's disease, diabetes, things like that, like everyone else, cancer. And you'll start to read more on it, and you won't follow crackpot theories on diets in order to protect yourself. You might actually just study some science. Now, the secondary reason I'm interested in ALS is because back in the late 70s, when I was working towards my PhD at the University of California at Berkeley, you can laugh if you want to be an ignorant fool, still one of the great universities in the world in the sciences. One of my dissertation topics was ALS and tropical plants, because there was a relationship that had been found between a certain primitive type of palm known as a false sago palm, or cycads, that look like palms. They're very ancient plants. And a certain subpopulation of people in Guam, the Chamorro people, who used the seeds of this plant to make a sort of flour which they made into tortillas. And they developed, those people had a high incidence of this neurodegenerative disease called amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, Parkinsonism, dementia complex. These are diseases characterized by motor impairment. We're all interested in that. So there was an environmental connection that I was fascinated by, and I wrote about it a little bit. I didn't really advance knowledge that much. I advanced my own knowledge. But just going back to cycads, if you find them, if you look it up, cycads, C-Y-C-A-D-S, what's interesting about them, they're amongst the fossils of many geological formations dating back to the Mesozoic. And the living species of cycads are survivors of plants which existed many millions of years ago. They're one of the most ancient species of plants on the earth. And so in these populations, also in regions of Japan, in the islands of Japan, they use the seeds of this cycad to make a flour, but they also, it was found, had high amounts of ALS. See what I'm saying? So I said, wait a minute, what the heck is this? What does this have to do with health, and how does this plant have to do with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease? Well, I'm talking about it because of Stephen Hawking saying there is no God. Well, there's much to talk about, and if I had 3 or 4 hours with you, I could talk about ALS and the induction of neurofibrillary tangles with a tau isoform distribution, similar to that found in Alzheimer's disease and associated with the lesions found in TDP43 and LRRK2. But what does it have to do with Cycas micronesica, the false sago palm? And what does it have to do with you? What foods, you're going to ask me, should you avoid to avoid the disease allegedly related to this cycad, also known as the Leytico-Bodig syndrome, ALS again? What is it? What's in this food? What is in it that does it? Well, it may be a compound that is produced by bacteria. And what's interesting is the traditional diet of the Chamorro people in Guam also included the fruit bat, bats. Now, bats, listen to this to show you how science works. Bats are a species that feed on cycad seed components. And as they feed on these seeds from this plant, they accumulate a compound called BMAA. Now, what is BMAA? Well, it's a type of protein that can cause this disease, because BMAA is reported in the brain tissue of Guam patients, and data is suggesting that some Northern American patients, that would be you, who are dying of Alzheimer's disease, also have detectable brain levels of BMAA. This is fascinating. And so if you look into this in any detail, you are led to, the green slime that's found in lakes, things like that? That's the dangerous stuff. And what originally started as the discovery of a little-known disease in Guam has now spread to a list of findings about some of our most debilitating brain disorders and potential toxins that are laying in bodies of water around the world. This is a fascinating study. And this part of it is the part that you may be interested in, but I don't want to alarm you into not eating shellfish or shrimp. But truthfully, you should know a little bit about that, especially if you study any of this, because you'll see insights into the disease. And you'll find that many of it is clustered around bodies of water where there's an environmental toxin, again called BMAA, that is produced by cyanobacteria. That's the blue-green algae that live in soil, lakes, and oceans. Now, what does it have to do with you? Well, these cyanobacteria are eaten by fish and other aquatic creatures. And studies have shown that BMAA is found in seafood. What does that have to do with you? It means that certain diets and locations may put people at particular risk for neurological disorders like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Now, do I have your attention now? Because I can go on with this, or I can do, if you'd like, the normal fare. Like you can ask me what I think about the Saudi Arabian situation. Like I was on Newsmax TV this morning talking about stop mass hysteria. And my interviewer on Newsmax, John Bachman, said, Dr. Savage, what do you think about the killing of Mr. Khashoggi in the Saudi embassy? I said, I have no opinion whatsoever. I wasn't there. And I caught him off guard. He said, well, that's what makes you so popular, because you don't claim to know everything about everything like everyone else in the media has an opinion on everything. I said, it's easy to have an opinion on it. You know, you can might as well compute. Let's see, Trump had something to do with it. Trump had nothing to do with it. The Saudis did it. The Saudis didn't do it. I said, I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't know who killed him. I don't even know how he died. I don't know the man. So that's an example. There are things I know something about. There are things I can make some judgment about. And there are things I know nothing about whatsoever. And I choose not to talk about things I know nothing about, incidentally. So I want to go on for a minute more, if I may, if you'll just give me another few minutes, on this issue of Lou Gehrig's disease and our toxins that are found in plants, like I mentioned, the cycads, and in certain seafood related to ALS, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's. Or I can do this at another time, if you don't mind. This is the Savage Nation. I don't know. What do you want me to do today? You want me to go into there is no God? I don't want to talk about that, because all we're going to get is there is God, there is no God. I believe in God, I don't believe in God. That's not good talk radio. Good talk radio is talking about ALS and the possible causations, isn't it? Doesn't that advance our knowledge? And while we're doing that, let's play one of my favorite pieces of music, which is good to stimulate and organize your mind. It's Mozart's Horn Concertos. I want you to listen to it for a minute, and I'll tell you why. Listen. So I ask myself this question as I listen to Mozart, and tears come to my eyes, wondering where is the Mozart of today? And if Mozart were alive today, would he be invited to the Oval Office? Because just a little while ago, we had a rap artist, so-called, in the White House, and I wanted to cry at the thought of how low this nation has fallen. Because I think that if Mozart were alive, no politician would have anything to do with him, since there are not enough classical music lovers to amount to very much, and therefore, what do we need Mozart for? Let's go to the gutter. That's where most of the people are.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Not long ago, it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank, to expand the business, to go on vacation, to buy a new car, remember? But today, withdrawing your own cash has become very, very risky. Listen, according to The Secret War on Cash, a new Swiss America white paper I just read, it made my hair stand on end. You better be careful when you go to the bank. I learned why banks are now required to spy on you and I for the government. And then they report any financial behavior deemed suspicious or unusual. What does that mean? Get The Secret War on Cash now by calling 800-289-2646. 800-289-2646. Did you know simply spending cash today is enough to get you branded as a potential criminal? You heard me. You better read The Secret War on Cash. It's free by calling 800-289-2646. The new war against cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. Find out how to survive and thrive by reading The Secret War on Cash. It's free if you call 800-289-2646 right now. I'm Michael Savage, and you're listening to Talk 1300 There they go. No rap music. There goes 90% of the listeners, the haters. If Mozart were alive, would he be given a tour of the Oval Office? Would the liberal media pay attention to Mozart in the White House? Nah. Because there aren't that many classical music lovers, so therefore Mozart is irrelevant. And that's the world we're living in. So if I wake up in the morning and I play certain music, it's not only classical, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm known for listening to jazz, rock and roll, you name it. But if I don't really feel good, I play classical music because it humbles me to the point where I almost break down inside, saying that's impossible that a human being could have lived on this earth like Mozart and had a brain that was like that could conceive music like that. To me, it's as close as you're ever going to get to God. And it goes back to the fact that there are differences between people. And unfortunately for us, we're living in a time where everyone thinks they're equal to everyone else because of social media. That's the tragic truth. If you saw the kind of idiots who are on Twitter or on Facebook who comment on things they know nothing about, but because they can fire off a one-liner, suddenly they're equal to the greatest scientists on earth. In fact, they're better. And this is the problem with social media. You could say it's very democratic and it levels the playing field. No, the opposite is true. they haven't qualified to comment at all. It's like having a moron in the classroom, let's say, if you're a teacher, and having an idiot in the back who keeps interrupting you and makes the class pay attention to him because he's got a big mouth and interrupts the teacher so no one learns anything. Trust me, I know what it's like to be a teacher. I know what it's like to have idiots in the classroom who disrupt the class. But because of the breakdown of our society in all standards and all forms in every aspect of our lives, no one knows what's right or wrong anymore. Very few people do anyway. They don't know north from south, east from west, truth from falsehood, good from bad. And so, therefore, if you go on the social media, any moron could take a picture of themselves, and now they're more famous than Einstein. People probably know a stripper more than they do Albert Einstein. I would say that the stripper who's attacking Donald Trump is better known today than, let's say, Martha Washington or something like that. You see where I'm coming from. So, anyway, to make a long story short, so I'm listening to Lou Gehrig. I'm listening to the Mozart, and then I see the article that Stephen Hawking's, the guy in the wheelchair, very tragic. Don't get me wrong. I'm not mocking his disease. It's a very tragic disease, but it does not make him the genius on every subject on the planet, including the kick in the guts today. He said in his last book that we just got a glimpse at today, there is no God. Well, I don't care what he said. He's one of billions of people who said something about God. Why is his statement about God more than the next guy? It isn't. But because he was a darling of the American left media, suddenly because he said there is no God, now all of a sudden that's a big deal. Now, I understand that it's not. I don't understand anything. That's all I want to say. So I try to tell you something about cycads, the sago palm, the Chamorro population, the relationship to blue-green algae and microtoxins that are found in algae in lakes and ponds and rivers and things like that, and how it might produce neurotoxins that are related to ALS and things like that. But it's a long topic for another day. Maybe I'll do it on my podcast. You know what I'm saying? Come January. This is a topic I could do for 3 days. Health. I may do a regular health segment where I don't have the time to do it on talk radio because it's a different format. It's like the way it is, commercial radio. You got to interrupt in order to support your show. You need advertisers. Let's be clear. It's a different story with a podcast. You get a chance to expound in a little more depth with a little more, insight if you get that chance. But anyway, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying. So here we are in this imperfect world, trying to bring some shards of perfection in this imperfect world, and we're talking about topics that most people are not interested in. Because if I would instead immediately shift to the word immigration, Honduras, you'd be interested more. And you might want to, actually you should be. Because as I said today, what's going on in this country right now with immigration is a disaster. It's a disaster that I've been writing about for 25 years. And I tried to publish a book right after I got my doctorate in 1979, 80, called Immigrants and Epidemics. This is after I had 6 books published already. And my co-author was the dean of the School of Public Health, brilliant man, and nobody in New York would touch the book for political reasons. That was then. Do you understand how much worse it's gotten here today? It's gotten worse here today than it was then. It's a miracle that I'm still on the radio, but I won't be here in January on some major stations, even though my ratings were higher than anyone else on the station, because of political reasons only. Make no mistake about it. God is truth is DNA. Welcome to the Savage Nation. I wrote that in my journals when I was 18 years old at Queens College, when I was still religiously searching for what truth really was. And I really have never stopped my quest. God is truth is DNA. What does that mean? Oh, I don't know. I never read it anywhere. How does he know anything? He's just a talk show host. Well, you figure out what that means. So here's a headline. First segment talked about the relationship between ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease, and environmental toxins, for example. And in this segment, I'm going to talk about people in at least 22 states have come down with a rare polio-like illness, another neurological disease called acute flaccid myelitis, AFM, mostly in children. Now, the CDC is not reporting on any causation whatsoever. They tell you to wash your hands with soap and water. Gee, that's brilliant. That's really brilliant. You know, the one thing I wanted to do, which I don't want to do anymore, before Trump became president, was I wanted to run the CDC. I would have cleaned that place out like a clocksmith cleans out a clock that isn't running right. I would have gotten rid of all the dead weight, stealing all of the money for bad science and corrupt science and political science. Why are we not seeing any relationship between where this polio-like illness AFM is coming from? What do you mean they don't know? Wash your hands with soap and water. That's the best thing our best scientists can give us? Well, let's ask ourselves some questions. A couple of years back, your good friend Barack Obama flooded America with Honduran refugees. Remember he was bringing them in by the trainload through Mexico? Trainloads of young women and babies and infants who will never work in this country. Never. Permanent wards of the state. Now, before that, there had been no Zika in America. Remember that little disease called Zika? But you see, it was endemic in Honduras. Zika was endemic in Honduras. And Obama, by flooding America with millions, I don't know how many, hundreds of thousands of immigrants, he brought in Zika virus, and nothing ever was said about it by the vermin in the media. Well, now we have AFM, a polio-like illness, who are destroying children in 22 states. And again, the dummies in the media who are science illiterates, gee, I don't know. The CDC tells us there's no known cause. Wash your hands with soap and water. You hear? So let's look into this. By the way, welcome, free thinkers, wherever you are. We are a dying breed in an age of thought control. That's right. Free thinkers are a dying breed in thought control. So the headline is, Trump threatens to cut U.S. aid to Honduras over immigrants, right? Trump threatens to cut U.S. aid to Honduras over immigrants. Now, I was asked this morning, what would you do to stop the flood of Hondurans that are asking to cross from Mexico into America and, again, suck the nation dry? Well, here's an answer to that question. Didn't we just cut a deal with Mexico called NAFTA? Wasn't it highly touted by the Trump administration as a great cure-all for all of our problems with Mexico? Yeah, we told, this is going to be great. It's going to be wonderful for America. Well, since Mexico's now our partner in everything, and everyone's happy, we would say, we have to say to Mexico, okay, you've got to stop them in Mexico, because they have to transit through your nation, and we will provide the funding to build housing and detention facilities for all the Hondurans in Mexico, but they're not coming into America. They are not crossing our border. And you're going to stop them with the Mexican military, and you're going to give them the detention that they need and the care that they need, but we're not taking them. Now tell me what's wrong with that idea. Nothing's wrong with the idea, but I'm not in power. I'm only a talk show host. I should say, what do I know? I know everything. I know everything about a lot of things and nothing about some things. Let me tell you that right now. And so the fact of the matter is, that's a logical conclusion, isn't it? I think it's a logical way to stop the flood of Hondurans who are coming in, who are amassing to cross our border and suck our welfare system dry and destroy our hospitals again. Again, take everything from the American people, the schmucks who take everything. We may as well be invaded by a foreign army. So you look at the Hondurans, there's an awful lot of young men of military age on that mile of the caravan. Caravan, were they coming in by camel? Although they're calling it a caravan. No, you stop them in Mexico. The Mexicans stop them in Mexico. We provide Mexico with the money to build sane, logical, humane housing for them of a very primitive order. We're not giving them a three-level, a three-bedroom, two-bath color television house. Basic barracks like your soldiers live in. And they'll get much better care than they do in Honduras. And then when they're better, send them home. That's simple. The world has to understand that no first-rate nation can take in all of the world's poor. It's impossible. Now, that's what the communists would like you to believe, that we should all share everything. I would say start with Bernie Sanders' $1 million last year. Let him give it away, then I'll believe a word he says. The day Bernie Sanders gives away the money he's making on his communism is the day I'll believe a word any of them say. But again, okay, so what's this rare polio-like illness? Where is it coming from, AFM? You have to dig very hard to get any answers on this at all, because it's very serious. It can lead to paralysis and death in children. On October 4th, health officials in Minnesota announced that 6 children contracted AFM, acute flaccid myelitis, which is polio-like. Now, the CDC has been investigating this increase in AFM, which began in 2014, but they don't know why it's happening. Therefore, I'd fire the head of the CDC. I'd fire him yesterday. What do you mean he doesn't know? What kind of scientist doesn't know? What are you being paid for? If you don't know, get out of there. What, you like to go to vacations in Thailand and study the sexual habits of horses? So every article says the causes of AFM are still unclear. It's unclear. We don't know anything. But it's thought that AFM may be a communicable disease. Really? Well, there's one link. Oh, it may be a communicable disease. And certain viruses, including polio, enteroviruses, adenoviruses, West Nile virus, may even cause AFM. Where'd the West Nile virus come from? It says West Nile. It doesn't say New York virus, does it? I mean, the West Nile virus, where did it come from? Oh, well, you can pretty much see where I'm going with this, right? Well, you understand what I'd like to see, which is close the borders, do health screening like was done when your grandfather or grandmother came here, or great-grandfather, when anyone with an illness was quarantined to prevent them from spreading it into the healthy population. Well, those are antiquated ideas. You can quarantine anyone, no matter what disease they have. That would go against the sensibilities of the American left. And so the healthy population is at increased risk of diseases like this from these third world countries, in plain English. Common sense would dictate you don't let a diseased person in your country. And common sense, if you have a house or an apartment, would you let someone with a communicable disease in your apartment unless you're a moron in San Francisco? In San Francisco, they'd probably sleep with the person with a communicable disease to show what a good leftist they were. They'd embrace them and kiss them on the lips to show what good people they are. That's how sick they are. But if you have a sane nation, you say, no, I don't want to get sick. So what I'm saying to you is there's a relationship between some immigrants from some countries and some diseases. And if you're afraid to say it, then you're now living in the Soviet Union. Remember I told you I ran into a woman last week and just walking around in the mall, said she's from Hungary. It was so shocking when she said this to me. She said, I come from the ex-Soviet Union, and she said, people are more afraid to express themselves politically in America than they were in my country under Soviet rule. I was stunned by it. You're more afraid to express yourself at home or at work than the Soviets were under Stalin. And I put that on the radio 2 weeks ago, and I woke up and there was an article just the other day exactly on that subject, that people in America are terrified to express themselves because of the insane communist left. They're afraid to say one word at work for fear they'll be fired. They're afraid to say anything about anything. So you're now a prisoner in more fear than the Soviet era in America today. Yeah, okay, well, what can you do? It's just one man. One man against the world, shoveling you-know-what against the tide. It's very, very difficult odds here. I write the book, Stop Mass Hysteria, America's Insanity from the Salem Witch Trials to the Trump Witch Hunt. It's doing well, but not great. It's not doing as good as the commie books and the comic books. Not as good as the comic books on the left and the comic books on the right. People want simple books and simple ideas. They don't want to read. They don't want to think. They don't want history. All they want are polemics. I'm not complaining. It's the marketplace. Let the marketplace determine. There's nothing I can do about it. I tried something new. I went from politics to history. People were not really ready. I don't know where the book's going to be on the list, if it's even on the list after week one. I don't know whether you bought the book or you didn't buy the book. All I know is I went to my local bookstore, Barnes & Noble. They said they sold it out. So whether that'll indicate the country is ready to read something serious instead of a comic book or a comic book, I don't know. But unless you have a television show on Fox News in particular, and or you are lauded by the mainstream media as a genius, and you have no television or radio show, but you're on every show in the country, books have a very, very, very hard chance to ever get into the public eye. Those are the odds I like. I love it. I've always liked to swim against the tide. I've always loved swimming upriver. And I'm reaching a point where I don't know if I want to do it anymore. I know it's an odd time to tell you about all this stuff, but it's already almost November. I launched the book. I'm coming to the end of this cycle in radio and in the media. I've told you I would never do another political book, although I'm being asked to already, please do one more on the presidential. You can't leave us because the presidential election's coming up in 2020. Please, Savage, just hang in there for one more cycle. I'm not so sure I want to do it. And I don't want to talk much more about it right now because you're going to start, oh, Mike, don't leave us. You know, that kind of. I don't want to do the old Mike, don't leave us. I'm not trying to get you to do anything or say don't. But truthfully, maybe it's time for me to do a Johnny Carson, is what I'm thinking. And, here's the funny part about how I work. When thoughts start to flood up in my brain from my subconscious, I listen to them. I can only repress thoughts for so long. And sometimes you got to listen to your inner, right? You got to listen to the old inner. And I'm reaching that point. Well, what does it really matter? What does it really matter? Do I have to do this until I drop dead on the radio? I went to dinner last night with someone who wants to give me a television show. Actually, I don't want to talk about it. It was real deep. So, well, there's someone in the media who's 84 years old who said he's never going to stop till he dies. I said, well, I don't know. That's great. Is that noble? There's something noble about saying you're going to work till you drop dead like a horse? They shoot horses, don't they? Remember? What do you dance on the dance floor till you drop dead? Or is there more nobility in leaving at the height of your career, at the top of your career? I'm walking out, and that's the end of it. These are the questions that I'm thinking about it. But here's the problem. I'm drifting in from disease to this. Here's the problem with that thinking. I don't have any hobbies. Not really. I mean, I collect old cars, but I have 2 old Jaguars. I don't drive them that much. Not like I sit in the garage and touch the carburetors, I don't do anything I really like outside of radio. This is what I really love doing. That's the problem. I've given my heart and my soul to this for a quarter of a century. I don't golf. It's too slow for me. I mean, if you golf, God bless you. I find it too slow a sport. It's just I can't watch the ball and then walk, and that's too slow. Tennis is too slow for me. I don't do anything other than this. This is what I love. I love ideas. I love thinking. I love politics. Can you transition to becoming a normal human being after a quarter of a century of driving yourself to the top based on truth? Well, tune in to find out. Hey, look, the FBI is warning anyone who gets paid through direct deposit, is that you, to be on the lookout for phishing emails requesting personal information. They may ask for login credentials to their bank accounts. The credentials can be used to change bank account information, and then they're going to block alerts to consumers warning you of changes to your direct deposits, which are then redirected to another account controlled by scammers, right? There are so many threats in today's connected world, and it just takes one weak link for criminals to get in, and it's a good thing New LifeLock Identity Theft Protection happens to add the power of Norton Security to help protect you against threats to your devices that you really can't easily see or fix on your own. Come on. No one can stop every cyber threat. We know that. No one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions everywhere. We know that. But New LifeLock with Norton Security can see threats you might miss on your own. So I want you to go to LifeLock.com or call 1-800-LifeLock, promo code SAVAGE. That's very important. Okay, promo code SAVAGE, very important if you love this show, and you're going to get an extra 10% off your first year, plus a $25 Amazon gift card with annual enrollment. You got it? That's 1-800-LifeLock, promo code SAVAGE. That's promo code SAVAGE, terms apply. Right. And now we go back to free thinking on the Savage Nation, wherever you are, you the dying breed in an age of thought control. Just to summarize in a few sentences or less, I started by talking about ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, Steve Hawking saying there is no God, and I went from ALS to the outbreak of polio-like a polio-like illness that are really wrecking our children, trying to suggest there's a relationship to immigrants. And I will tell you right now, you say, well, come on, what's the relationship between this polio-like illness called AFM that's hitting the children in America and immigrants? Are you just doing this for hysteria because you want to sell Stop Mass Hysteria? I'll let you decide, okay? If you go back in the literature, you will find that epidemiologic data suggests that this AFM cluster was likely associated with the large outbreak of EVD68. Do you remember EVD68? Do you know where EVD68 had been endemic and still is endemic, which you'll not find in the media anymore? Honduras and Central America. I'll say it again. This virus, EVD68, which we read about for a while, has been wiped out of the literature. You can't find it anywhere. And you cannot find any science that shows any relationship between EVD68 and the outbreak of AFM, because they will not fund that kind of research, because, as I said to you, I've tried to tell you over and over again how corrupt our science has become in the West, particularly in the United States of America. In other words, you will not get, if you were a PhD student or young scientist, and you said, look, I'm thinking about this outbreak of polio-like illness and the older relationship between EVD68, which was endemic in Honduras, you wouldn't get 10 cents to study that. The CDC wouldn't fund it. The NIH wouldn't fund it. you'd probably lose your postdoc. You'd be thrown out of school. This is what happened in the Soviet Union under Stalin. I'm just trying to tell you the way it is. I'm just trying to tell you, there's almost no science allowed anymore unless it conforms to the politics of the time. And what's sad here is that I tried to awaken the Trump administration. They're super bright people. They listen for a while, but they could care less about what's going on at the NIH and the CDC. They need somebody to go in there and clean house. Right now, it's the same as it was under Obama, only worse. Did you hear me? It got worse, not better.
And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, author of Liberalism is a Mental Disorder, Trump's War, and God, Faith, and Reason, Michael Savage.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
As the guy hits the deep right field, that ball is going, it is gone. Maris hitting his second homer of the day. And the Yankees' sixth homer.
Those were the days, my friend. Those were the days, my friend, we thought they'd never end. And so you had the Lou Gehrig speech, known as one of the greatest and most noble speeches in the history of sports. Compare that to the sterling examples of sportsmanship that exist today, beating each other up on the field, etc. And you'll understand what I'm talking about. So we're talking about Lou Gehrig's disease because Stephen Hawking died, and he was considered the great guru of everything. But he really wasn't. And now in his last book, he said God doesn't exist. So what? What do you see? He was an atheist at the end. He was a bitter, broken man from his disease. It's sad that in his disease, he didn't find any faith. Now, I don't know how I would be if I had that disease. I can't say. But it doesn't mean that everything he said was gospel. You understand what I'm saying? So that launched us into the discussions we've been having today on the show. And I went into the story of ALS. As I said to you, I was very interested in that back in the late 70s when I was working for my doctorate. And I did some research on it, and I've continued to be interested in plants and toxins, meaning, see, we're living in an age of mass psychology and mass hypnosis on so many subjects, including health and nutrition, health and disease. So if I say to you that there are toxicants occurring in natural products that you have to be aware of, people don't even know what I'm talking about. There's a mythology today because of the mass psychology, mass psychosis, where people say if it's natural, it's good. That's the stupidest thing you could ever think of. I can give you a list of at least 20 to 30 natural compounds that can kill you instantly. But you see the ignoramuses who think because they tweet they're brilliant on every subject wouldn't even understand what we're talking about, would they? I'll give you an example. Toxicants that occur in nature that you should know about. So let's go to South America, to the jungles together for a minute. So you see the indigenous people hunt monkeys in the trees, and they use arrows that are dipped in curare, and they fire the arrow at the monkey in the tree. The arrow doesn't kill the monkey. It paralyzes the monkey because curare will paralyze you or a monkey, depending upon the dose, and the monkey falls out of the tree while still alive, and they take it back and kill it and cook it. All right. So what's the point? Well, curare is a natural product. It can kill you. How about ricin? We hear about ricin, right? Well, what's that from? The castor bean plant. The most potent natural toxin that I know of is from the castor bean plant. It's so potent that an infinitesimal amount can kill you. So you got to be very cautious about this statement that if it's natural, it's good for you. And this is part of the crowd psychology that I try to talk about in Stop Mass Hysteria, leading you back to politics again, because mass hysteria or mass hypnosis is something you have to understand, because the media and governments exploit both mass hysteria and mass hypnosis. For example, selling the absurd notion that Russia cost Hillary Clinton the election, or denying that France and England are crumbling under the weight of Muslim immigration. One of those statements is demonstrably untrue. The other is demonstrably true. Yet those in denial refuse to accept reality in either case. This is what I mean when I talk about mass hysteria, and it's all in my new book, which is a must-read for those of you who can still think. So now we go back again to the other illness right now that's scaring people, especially those with young children, which is the polio-like illness, AFM. Now, I happen to remember that a few years ago when Obama flooded America with Honduran women and their young children, they brought in Zika. But I also remember railing against this insane policy because of the fact that EVD68, enterovirus D68, was known to be endemic in Honduras. And why would you bring in children infected with EVD68 and not expect them to co-infect children here in our schools, unless you're a left-wing Marxist who wants to destroy America, and you want voters, and you want this, and you want that, and you don't care about the health of the nation, okay? So if you try to find any relationship in the literature today between EVD68 and the outbreak of this polio-like illness, you will not find it anymore in America. It's gone from the literature because no one's funding, the government won't fund that kind of relationship. So listen to what I found for you. I had to go and find scientists in China who are showing relationships between EVD68, okay, and this new outbreak of polio. Because in China, they have more freedom in science than we do here. I'm telling you like it is. So there's a scientist that's associated with the Joint Center for Infection and Immunity in the Guangzhou Institute of Pediatrics in the Guangzhou Medical University, Guangzhou, China. Then along with him is another co-author from the Chinese Academy of Sciences, Shanghai, China. Why is it that the Chinese are allowed to follow their lines of reasoning and thought without regard to the political end, while here in America, it's a dead end if you want to show any association between immigrants and epidemics and what's going on with this polio-like illness? Why? I already proved to you why. And that's why I said to you all of the time that Trump was running, I said, boy, I hope when he wins, if he wins, you know, I was dreaming about it. I wouldn't do it now anyway. I'm not up to it. I can't be a bureaucrat. But somehow I thought I would like to be an advisor to clean up the CDC or the NIH with regard to these corrupt grant makers. I mean, you have no idea how many billions of dollars are being given for garbage science. Just junk, garbage. But worse than that is the science that will not be studied along the lines of what I've just been telling you. I saw the corruption of the CDC under Obama, and unfortunately it hasn't gotten worse under Trump. It hasn't gotten better under Trump. That's the sad truth. Now, I realize this is a very obtuse sideshow for most of you. Well, you want to stick to the main circus, the main arena. And I don't blame you. You know, this is only a talk show. After all, we're not trying to save the world. Well, I am. I've been trying to save the world ever since I was born in my own little way. As imperfect as I am as a human being, there's a part of me that's quite perfect. And that's the part of me that continues to work when I don't really have to. And I'm still a social worker at heart. This radio show is like social work. And so, again, what are we talking about? Whatever you want to talk about, we're talking about. I'm going to move off the science for a minute, and we can go to the slapstick if you'd like. We could play Robert De Niro on the Alec Baldwin show. There's some slapstick sound for you. We could play Hillary Clinton. That's slapstick radio. We can do slapstick. We have Dem gubernatorial nominee Stacey Abrams says blue wave will include undocumented immigrants. That's slapstick. We have Hillary Clinton saying Bill didn't abuse his power because Monica was an adult. That's slapstick. We have an Antifa thug in Portland berating a 9/11 widow. That's slapstick. I know how to pull your chain. We got Maxine Waters still trying to stir the masses into rioting, threatening that Brett Kavanaugh won't rest easy in his job. I mean, she is a terrorist right now. She's a one-woman terrorist organization. And so I could do all of that. I know how to do radio and how to get you to listen. But actually, I'd rather listen to Mozart's horn concertos for the rest of my life and not talk at all. You know, there used to be a saying that when Buddha, I'm not a Buddhist, by the way, but I learned from a lot of different religions, different philosophers, different philosophy. And one of the things I read, I think it was in Buddhism, there were phases of a human's life. And at a certain phase in the ideal, the man left the busyness of his life and went off into the wilderness and never be heard from again to basically study for his next transition to the next world, to kind of think about the transition. I think it was called the forest phase. But in America, we don't believe in that. We think you're supposed to work until you drop dead. That there's absolutely no utility in not working unless you're a bum altogether. What percent of this population works and pay taxes? What? What percent of the federal income tax is paid by people who earn over $300,000 a year? About 99% of all the taxes are paid by the hardworking Americans who are successful. What percent of the taxes are paid by the 1,048 multimillionaires? Almost all of it. And so you get a Bernie Sanders that comes along and says, pay your fair share, pay your fair share, pay your fair share, pay your fair share, pay your fair share. What is he talking about? What he wants to do in this country is what's done in every communist country on the earth. And it will lead to the decimation and destruction of the nation. So I could talk about that, which I just did in a subtle way, but I'm not going to. I really don't want to anymore. I'd rather talk about science. In fact, maybe I want to get back into science in a strange way. I mean, I don't know how you can't just get back into science, you know. It intrigues me. Maybe I could fund some young researchers who aren't being funded, find a laboratory that isn't being funded, and, you know, just private stuff. Who knows? I'm just thinking out loud. But it started with ALS and Stephen Hawking, you know, and we went from there to the polio-like illness and how it's being covered up in its relationship to immigrants who are bringing in EVD-68 from Honduras. That's where I went with that. And I saw an interesting political story. Ford calls it quits on Kavanaugh, wants no prosecution, no investigation, no impeachment. It appeared today in a publication called Legal Insurrection. Now, why would Dr. Freud, all of a sudden not want to go after him anymore? She does not want him to be impeached, said CNN's Dana Bash. Oh, no, said her sterling attorney, that monster Katz. Huh? Why all of a sudden a woman who persecuted and almost destroyed Kavanaugh, a perfectly innocent, wonderful man, why is she not wanting to pursue prosecution or investigation or impeachment? I know why. Katz said, Professor Ford has not asked for anything of the sort. What she did was to come forward and testify before the Senate and agree to cooperate with investigation by the FBI, and that's what she sought to do here, said Katz, the fork-tongued lawyer. She came forward and she was heard, and now she's done. Oh, no. That's not why Dr. Freud is backing out all of a sudden. That's not why the vicious mouth Katz, the lawyer, is suddenly dummying up and saying, oh, she doesn't want to do any more. They're terrified right now of the blowback. You see, there's a case to be made against Dr. Ford that could not only incriminate her, but could imprison her. That's number one. Let me repeat that. That woman could not only be incriminated, but incarcerated for what she did or tried to do to Kavanaugh. That's number one. And so, by the way, could Dianne Feinstein be incriminated and incarcerated for what she did? It won't happen because the Senate would never do it, but there's a case to be made for that. They knowingly lied. They knowingly hid evidence. They knowingly broke the law and almost destroyed him. And they figured they had it made. They figured that Kavanaugh would break and run. They figured Trump wouldn't dare to back him for fear of the political ramifications. They did not count on Trump's stand-up behavior. I mean, he's a stand-up kind of guy from New York. He stood up for Kavanaugh right to the end, by the way. And it was because Trump was so strong on Kavanaugh that others in the Senate suddenly found their testosterone, like Lindsey Graham suddenly became a testosterone-driven male. I know where that came from. It's great to see him. It's the new Lindsey. I figured out why Lindsey is like that. He's replacing John McCain as the, quote, maverick, right? John McCain's gone, so who's taking his place? Lindsey Graham's becoming the maverick now in the Senate. So because of Trump's support for Kavanaugh, and he wouldn't back down no matter what these vicious human beings did or tried to do to Kavanaugh, Trump stood with him, and we won. It was a close one, man, but it was because of the president. Make no mistake about it. And I think shows like this did help support public opinion towards the truth of the persecution of this innocent man. And everyone started to realize, wait a minute, I don't have to be a conservative to understand this could hit me tomorrow. They could accuse me, wherever I work, of being this or being that. And what, there's no evidence? It goes against all the rules of our nation, what they did to him. All the rules of jurisprudence, what they did to him. All the rules of the Bible were reversed. And if you look at the Jewish law, for example, of which I know something about, it violated all the tenets of Jewish law itself. I don't know if you know it, but remember I kept quoting the Bible, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor? Remember? Well, apparently Dianne Feinstein didn't read that in Catholic school. But I'll tell you more about it when I come back on the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. I'm getting a lot of comments on the Stephen Hawking comment, there is no God. Someone wrote this, how come, it's funny how these super scientists, so-called, are followed blindly. Hawking says global warming is real and there is no God. Richard Dawkins tells us that eating human flesh will save us all. Bill Nye, the no science guy, pushes the transgender agenda. Scary times. Thank you very much for understanding why I'm doing this today. So I think we've covered that one for now. I can do a lot more on it. And it's interesting to me what people respond to on Twitter or on the radio show or on my website. Last night, I went to the city. I had a business meeting, so I chose to meet at Alioto's on Fisherman's Wharf. I know the owners. They treat me really well. People think it's a tourist trap down there, but it can be. But when you go in there and you're treated like family, it's different. So I posted a picture of me with a martini in my hand. No vermouth, please. Toxic. And my book, Stop Mass Hysteria, next to me on the table. And, you know, I got as much response to that as I did on some intellectual subjects that I post on Twitter. They like pictures. I like to take pictures of me with a drink in my hand. It's become one of my favorite things. It's hard to manage. The camera in the right hand, now the drink in the left, and the table. If the light is just right, it's a beautiful picture. The light was really good here coming through the olive. And the other green thing floating in there as a piece. I did a double, a lime and an olive. I generally do not use any, what do they call that, fruit? Would you like fruit in your drink? Generally, no. I never let any of those stuff go in there because they touch it with their hands. I don't let it, you know what I'm saying? No fruit if you don't mind. If I want fruit, I'll go to a fruit stand. But there's a piece of lime. I like to eat the olive after I drink the drink. And then... you watch the sun go down over the Golden Gate Bridge, and you look at the mystery and beauty of the world, and, you know, the world feels better, like a better place. Good food, good drink, conversation. It makes life possible. And let's not forget great music. As I was playing for you earlier today, Mozart's horn concertos, and I asked really pointedly and sarcastically, if Mozart were alive today in an age of rap music, would he be invited to the Oval Office? I think the answer is in the question. No, of course not. There aren't enough people who listen to Mozart for Mozart to be invited to the Oval Office. Instead, go to the gutter.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE.
Let me point you to some stories on michaelsavage.com. So the headline is, Michael Savage nails it, Antifa types the brown shirts of Dems. That was originally a article on Breitbart, which is a great article by the interviewer, who's really good. He interviews me for every one of his books. He's really fabulous, and you got to look at the original on Breitbart. It's about the violent events being committed by left-wing activists, and I say it like it is. I mean, we have a DHS, they're a terrorist group, and arrest the leadership. End of story. This is not the First Amendment running around in masks. You know, I was laying in bed last night thinking about it, and I said the left's always shown us the Ku Klux Klan in white sheets over their heads, right? To disguise themselves as they committed violence and lynchings. Horrible, right? Now you see the left wearing the equivalent of white sheets over their heads, but they're black masks and hoodies. I said, so they're like the Ku Klux Klan on the left. I said, okay, just because you know what it is doesn't mean that the others are going to accept it. 2 GOP candidates assaulted in Minnesota. Really? Where'd that come from, Maxine Waters? And things like that nature, right? By the way, on Elizabeth Warren, she was celebrated as the first woman of color at Harvard Law. Can you believe this? She says that her roots as an Indian or whatever had nothing to do with her becoming a student or whatever, professor. Elizabeth Warren was celebrated as the first woman of color at Harvard Law. So she's capitalized on it pretty good, okay? Most states facing confirmed or possible cases of polio-like illness. I've talked about that for an hour. Very important story. Great review of Michael Savage's Stop Mass Hysteria, must-read book. Read this book. Some really good reviews have come out for really smart people. And then we go down onto the website. We see people beating people up in the streets. And another Harvey Weinstein prosecutor quits DA's office. That's a hell of a story. I don't want to do it now. Man, are they losing that case? All of these mean, horrible women prosecutors who have destroyed men's lives on spurious evidence in some cases are suddenly backing out because they understood that they got caught cheating against Harvey Weinstein. It's amazing to me what's going on. U.S. budget deficit expands to $800 billion in fiscal 2018 as spending surges. Am I the only one on the other side of the aisle who is talking about deficit spending like this? Whatever happened to all of you who were so gung-ho as, what do they call them, fiscal conservatives? Where'd you all go? What, because Trump's in the White House now, print money, that's all of a sudden good? I'm reminded of King Ludwig of Bavaria. How much can you keep printing till the entire currency collapses? Do you think that there's no limit to printing money in order to fund the social welfare state and all of the corporate welfare, meaning the soft money that goes to companies on bum projects that have no meaning whatsoever? All right. That's not resonating anymore. No one's fiscal conservative anymore but me. Sex doll rental firm offers widows replicas of their dead partners. I did that yesterday. That's so stupid. So let's say you're a 75-year-old woman and your husband dies. I don't understand that. Do they make a sex doll of him at 75 when he died? Or do you have like a model of him when he was 25 when you met him? I don't get that. Why would you need a sex doll of a 75-year-old man? It doesn't compute in my head. I'm sorry. Okay. Top 3% of U.S. taxpayers pay majority of income tax in 2016. Okay. Patriot prayer rally for law and order faces Antifa violence. And guess who got arrested by Mayor de Blasio? The Patriots, not the Antifa communists. Terrible. Antifa burns American flag. Portland's mayor defends Antifa's anarchy. Elizabeth Warren, blah, blah, blah. Then hundreds of Hondurans head for U.S. border mass migration march. As I said earlier, there's a solution to that one as well. And, of course, they're not listening to me in the administration, so I'll put it out on the airwaves. Maybe they'll hear it through you. You just conducted a NAFTA agreement with Mexico, our new great partner south of the border. Yay! Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, get out your enchilada. You have your partners in Mexico build housing for them. You use the Mexican military to prevent them from going anywhere but into this area that you built for them, and you do not let them come into our country. And then after they have been given the temporary, and I say temporary care that they may need, you deport them back to Honduras. Mexico can't afford them. We can't afford them. We can't afford the finances. We can't afford the diseases. So you send them back. That's all. You give them the help that they need, but you don't bring them in unless you're insane. Doesn't it make sense? I mean, do you have to be a genius to figure out what I just said? I guess so. Today, no one thinks. They don't think. Look, I exist in this business because of one reason. A, I'm offering you something that you're buying. Let's put it to you that way. You know, you think about it. When you really think about what is talk radio, which talk radio shows are successful and which aren't, which are long-lasting and which aren't, it's no longer related to whether you survive in this business or not is no longer related to ratings. For example, on New York and WABC, I had the highest ratings for years. I beat Hannity for 3 years straight. But they want to go in another direction. You won't hear me in New York come January unless you either stream me or for another station or you listen to my podcast. My ratings were great. That wasn't the reason. It's all politics. I can't do anything about it. There's nothing I can do about the politics of the ownership of stations. Do you understand that? I don't own the stations. They could run Mickey Mouse playing a kazoo if they wanted for 3 hours in a slot that I was in. What am I going to do? Say I'm better than Mickey Mouse with a kazoo? Well, you can say all you want, but you don't have any control over it. It doesn't matter if the show loses money. It doesn't matter at all. All that matters is that the agenda is pushed forward, especially going into 2020 when they're gearing up ready for the presidential election. So the only reason you listen to me at all is why? Well, you figure this guy's a little different. Sometimes he comes down on this side of a subject, sometimes that. And it seems like he does it based on reason, not just on a desire to please us. And he doesn't sit for 3 hours saluting Trump, which you can gag on that one. Because it's not Trump that I'm angry at. It's the talk show host who thinks that that's all you want to hear. That's the part that bothers me. What would you do if Obama was president and you had a talk show that for 3 straight hours it saluted how great Obama was? Obama was this, Obama was great, Obama's shoes shine brighter than anyone's shoe, Obama was smarter. How could you listen to that? Did you listen to it? No. No. The companies that specialized in left-wing propaganda in radio went out of business. And then when they lost their jobs, they came over to the other stations, and they started to get rid of conservatives, taking them off the air. You don't know any of this. Oh, yeah, it's a well-known fact in the business. People who destroyed their networks by running left-wing propaganda are now running other media now. Did you know that? Even in radio. Well, one day you'll learn more about it. If it's false, I wouldn't say it to you. So how do you survive it all in this business if you're a truth teller? The people will find you one way or the other. It's that simple. They'll find you online, or they'll find you on a podcast, or they'll stream you from somewhere. That's how it is. So that's the way it is. Now what? What are we going to talk about? Let's go to, I didn't take a call yet. This is one of these days. I don't know why it's so good. I know why I feel good. Extra clear. It's like a clear, like Scientology. A clear. I'm not a Scientologist, but I knew a guy who was in it. Early on, back in Queens, he went into it. One of the nuts in the crowd. He was like one of the biggest. All right, but he made a fortune, became a top guy in Scientology. I was surprised he went so high up in the thing. But we were like kids, 18, everyone was trying to find themselves. So he became a Scientologist. I'm talking, wow, like in the 60s. And I'll wake up 20 years later, he's like one of the chief gurus in the Scientology movement. But I remember the guy, there were certain things he said that were really good, like about headaches, for example. I had suffered migraines since I was a kid. And he tried to have me image the headache and where it came from. It actually helped me. But what really helped my migraines, and I self-cured, was reading George Osawa's Zen Macrobiotics, and I went on to the 10-stage diet of elimination. I was 18 years old, and on my own I found out which food types trigger my migraines, and I rarely get a migraine today unless I slip on that diet. For me, it was sucrose. Any refined sugars will do it, for example. And I know why exactly, because my brain runs very hot and very fast, and if it's like throwing rocket fuel into an engine, I mean, that engine will run on it, but you're going to burn the engine out with it. So my brain was sending back a signal, I'm going to give you a headache so you don't burn too fast and burn out. See, there's great feedback in your body and your brain if you learn how to listen to the signaling. You understand that? If you learn how to listen to your own signaling from your brain and your body, you actually could lead yourself to states of health that you could never even believe were possible. But, and here's the but, most of us have lost contact with these signals. We don't want to hear them. We've eliminated them. We put earbuds in or whatever. What do we do? So I've learned to listen to my body over the years. It's not always a nice message, but sometimes I don't want to hear what it has to say to me. Like, don't drink that drink. Oh, shut up. Leave me alone. You know, don't drink that vodka. It's not good for you today, whatever. But I listen. I have a very close relationship with it. So I took the Zen Macrobiotic diet, did elimination on sucrose, and cured my headache, and the rest is history. For me, it doesn't mean for you. Maybe you love sucrose. Maybe you like getting diabetes and cancer and heart disease. I can't stop you if that's what you want. People do crazy things today based on non-science. So the reason I'm happy today on radio is I was able to use my learning, my dissertation going back to 1978 in the ALS studies that I was interested in then, and the relationship to Lou Gehrig's disease today, and the statement by Stephen Hawking that God doesn't exist because he died of ALS. I figured that would be interesting. But do I know if you're really listening? Or maybe you listened to Hey Abbott already. I don't know. You could have turned off listening to Hey Abbott by now because you could hear everything you ever wanted to know about the administration, how great it is, around the clock. Hey Abbott. What's with that part down the middle of his hair? You know, it's a terrible thing to be a good-looking boy and become not so good-looking in your middle age, man. Wow. I don't know what it's like to be like that. I was never like a handsome guy. I was never like not known as handsome. I was okay. I had my share of fun, but what I'm saying is, what if you live on your looks and you have nothing underneath, no education and no intellect whatsoever, and you make a fortune, and finally you look in the mirror, and no matter what you do, you have to part your hair in the middle and look like Lou Costello in order to cover up the thinning hair. And so you get increasingly desperate to be young, and you start breaking bricks with your hand, and then the whole manhood thing comes up, and the people, well, they don't call you tiny. I mean, that was a terrible thing to do to the president. I'm talking about people in the media. They don't call you tiny. That's nothing to do with anything. What does size have to do with brains? You know, what does everything have to be everything? Some people are endowed mentally. Some are endowed physically. Some are endowed with both. Some are endowed with nothing. That's the human condition. What are you going to do about it? But if you're in the media and you're thriving based on your good looks, your good guy looks, and your hair starts to thin and your face starts to look like Jerry Lewis after a telethon in the 70s, and there's nothing you can do about it. I don't know what that's like. That's a form of torture in its own way. And then as the years go on, the portrait of Dorian Gray gets more and more corrupted. You know, I don't know. I think God in his own way has a little way of playing with people who think that they're bigger than God, you know? Do you have any idea what I'm talking about? Is there anyone out there who knows what I'm even talking about? I wonder sometimes. I think you do, because like if I run into people strangely, and what's increasingly happening to me is that people of different cultural backgrounds are stopping me in the street. Like yesterday, I had the day off, right? So I had to go to a dentist for something. So there's a nice lady said hello to me like she knew me. So I went up and said hello. She's from Cambodia, and she said to me very quietly, she said, I lived through those camps that Pol Pot created. My relatives were killed in them and lived through them. And I was stunned. Here's a living woman who, if you looked at her in the street, would say she's a liberal. The Democrats always think that if someone's from Asia, they're a liberal, or if someone's African-American, they're a liberal, or if someone's gay, you have no idea what a person's politics are. Really, you can't tell by looking at people. You just can't. Do you know that? Yeah, well, okay. Like some cops, for example, are diehard communist leftists. You wouldn't know that. There are many in the military who you'd think would be normally conservative Republican. They're left-wing commies. You wouldn't know that either. So you can never judge a book by its cover. I'll be back in a minute.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Have you ever taken your car in for an oil change? Your mechanic finds something wrong, and bingo, surprise, you're hit with a huge repair bill. And what happens when you're not covered by the manufacturer's warranty? You're paying out of your own pocket to fix it, that's what. That's why I recommend extended vehicle protection from CarShield. If your car has 5,000 to 150,000 miles, CarShield can save you from paying for high repair bills. Replacing your engine or even a simple sensor can cost thousands. But when you're protected by CarShield, you can have your favorite mechanic or dealership fix your car. It's your choice. CarShield also provides 24/7 roadside assistance and a rental car while yours is being fixed for free. Get covered by the ultimate in extended vehicle protection. Get CarShield. How? Call 800-CAR-6100. 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 Mention code SAVAGE or visit carshield.com. Use code SAVAGE to save a big 10%. That's carshield.com or 800-CAR-6100. Code SAVAGE to save 10%. A deductible may apply. Not long ago, it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank, to expand the business, to go on vacation, to buy a new car, remember? But today, withdrawing your own cash has become very, very risky. Listen, according to The Secret War on Cash, a new Swiss America white paper I just read, it made my hair stand on end. You better be careful when you go to the bank. I learned why banks are now required to spy on you and I for the government. And then they report any financial behavior deemed suspicious or unusual. What does that mean? Get The Secret War on Cash now by calling 800-289-2646. 800-289-2646. Did you know simply spending cash today is enough to get you branded as a potential criminal? You heard me. You better read The Secret War on Cash. It's free by calling 800-289-2646. The new war against cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. Find out how to survive and thrive by reading The Secret War on Cash. It's free if you call 800-289-2646 right now. I'm Michael Savage, and you're listening to Talk 1300 and 98.7. Let me tell you before we move on about the home security companies. You heard this before. Most of you, if you have regular home security companies, you know it's like a bad cable company, right? Hours waiting for the technicians, then hours on the phone. And then when you can't take them anymore, you want out, they say, nope, sorry, you're stuck in a 3-year contract. And I told you don't need to get stuck anymore. If you're looking to protect your home, go with Simply Safe Home Security. They're real, and they're comprehensive in their protection of every window, door, and room in your home. It's beautifully designed. It looks good in your house. You'll actually want to use it. You can put it in yourself with a couple of simple tools. And using Simply Safe makes your home safer. It's that simple. There are backups in place to keep you safe, protecting your home even if you lose power, you lose your internet, or someone attacks the system. Best of all, you're going to get 24/7 monitoring with police and fire dispatch for just $15 a month. And unlike other home security companies, no long-term contracts with Simply Safe. It's the best around-the-clock protection you can find for the best price. So protect your home today. Get free shipping and free returns at simplysafesavage.com. That's simplysafesavage.com. Once again, simplysafesavage.com. Right? It's good stuff. Go for it. Now, we've all heard of the brown shirts, and many of you don't know what they were. In not so long ago Germany times, there were the brown shirts, the SA, the Sturmabteilung, meaning assault division. And they were the attack dogs of the Nazi Party. And they used fear, violence, and intimidation to boost Adolf Hitler's presence and power. And who are the brown shirts of today? Look no further than the Democratic Party. Go to Portland, Oregon, and New York. Look at the political violence of the Antifa left, wearing the masks. What happened over the weekend, what happened in New York. Where is it coming from? You think it's growing out of the air through spontaneous combustion? Hillary Clinton basically is driving it. Maxine Waters is driving it. All of the left has decided that violence pays, and attacking, physically assaulting political opponents will intimidate voters during the elections. And I suggest that if it walks like a duck, it squawks like a duck. Well, it is a duck. And the brown shirts, or the SA, the Sturmabteilung, or the assault division of Adolf Hitler's street thugs, are being seen again in reincarnated form in America in the Antifa-type thugs who use baseball bats in the streets. They are the brown shirts of the polite girls who wear dresses and men who wear white shirts. The review is Cheryl Chumley's review on the Washington Chimes. That's Washington Chimes. The Washington Times. Michael Savage nails it. Antifa types the brown shirts of Dems. I linked it on michaelsavage.com. The original article is on Breitbart.com, where Alex Marlow interviewed me with regard to the book, Stop Mass Hysteria, and you got the sound from that interview, which you can listen to tonight instead of